Before the gods of Olympus ruled the sky, something else ruled reality itself. Not heroes, not protectors, not saviors. They were older, larger, and far more terrifying than anything humanity was ever meant to remember. The Olympian gods did not defeat evil. They buried it. They rewrote history. They carved marble lies. They turned monsters into myths and called themselves order. But beneath the mountains, beneath the seas, beneath the very concept of time itself, the Titans still exist. Not dead, not gone, waiting. Ancient Greek texts whisper a truth rarely spoken aloud. The Titans were not gods in the way we understand gods. They were forces, inevitable, unstoppable, and indifferent to human suffering. When the Titans ruled, the world did not know mercy. The sky crushed the land. The oceans swallowed cities before they were ever named. Time itself devoured everything in its path. And when the Olympians finally rose against them, it was not an act of justice. It was an act of fear, because the Titans carried prophecies. Prophecies that foretold the end of the gods themselves. Zeus knew this, and that knowledge haunted him. That is why the Titans were not destroyed. They were imprisoned in Tartarus, a living abyss beneath hell itself, where even gods feared to look. Because killing them was impossible, and because one day, the chains will fail. Tonight, we uncover the untold origin of the Greek Titans, and the apocalyptic prophecies that say their return will not just end Olympus, but end the world.
Before Olympus, before the Titans, before the concept of gods, kings, or even death itself, there was chaos. Not disorder as we imagine it, but absolute nothingness, stretching endlessly in all directions. No sky above. No earth below. No time moving forward. Only a silent, suffocating void where reality had not yet decided to exist. Ancient Greek sources describe chaos not as a being, but as a wound in existence, a vast, yawning emptiness where creation had not yet dared to take shape. There was no light to pierce it, no darkness to define it. There was only an endless, oppressive stillness that crushed all possibility. And from that silence, something began to stir. The first entities were not gods. They were primordial forces, born not from intention, but from inevitability. Gaia emerged first. Not as a gentle mother, but as a living, breathing mass of raw matter. The earth was not kind in its infancy. It convulsed. It screamed. Mountains tore themselves upward, oceans bled into existence, and the ground itself shuddered under the weight of being born. Then came Tartarus. Not merely a place, but a presence. A depth so vast and ancient that even Gaia feared it. Tartarus was the embodiment of confinement, of eternal pressure, of crushing isolation. It was the abyss beneath reality, where light would never reach and screams would never escape. And above it all stretched Uranus, the sky. Vast, unending, and suffocating. He pressed down upon Gaia constantly, never allowing her to rest, never allowing her creations to breathe. The sky and the earth were locked together in an endless, violent embrace that smothered everything born between them. This was not harmony. This was cosmic oppression. From this unbearable pressure, the next generation emerged. The Titans. But they were not born as rulers. They were born as responses, as reactions to a universe collapsing in on itself. Each Titan embodied a fundamental terror of existence. They were not personalities. They were laws without mercy. Time that devours all things. Oceans that never stop drowning. Light that burns instead of illuminates. Memory that refuses to forget pain. In the age before gods, reality did not bend to morality. There was no justice. No balance. Only survival. The Titans did not create life because they loved it. Life emerged despite them. Mountains rose and shattered endlessly. Seas swallowed the land and vomited it back again. The sky cracked with fire as if the universe itself was tearing open. And somewhere deep within this chaos, something far more disturbing was taking shape. The idea of replacement. Because even in the primordial age, one truth was already forming. Nothing rules forever. The Primordials gave rise to the Titans. And the Titans, whether they knew it or not, were already being watched by something younger, something hungrier, something destined to overthrow them. This is why the age before gods is never celebrated. This is why ancient myths speak of it only in fragments. Because to remember that time is to remember a universe where order was an illusion, where existence itself was hostile, and where the Titans were not villains. They were simply what happens when reality is left alone with its own nightmares. And this was only the beginning. The Titans were never meant to be remembered as gods. That was the lie. What ancient Greek tradition later softened into divine family trees began as something far more disturbing. The Titans were not born from love, ambition, or destiny. They were born because the universe could not stabilize itself. They were corrections. When Gaia groaned under the crushing weight of Uranus, when the sky pressed endlessly against the earth, when existence itself became unbearable, the Titans emerged like pressure fractures in reality, violent, necessary, and uncontrollable. They were not children. They were responses to cosmic trauma. Each Titan did not merely represent a concept. They were the concept, stripped of restraint, stripped of empathy. Cronus was not just time. He was time as predation, the certainty that everything born must be consumed, erased, and replaced. When Cronus breathed, ages ended. When he moved, civilizations, yet to exist, were already doomed. His hunger was not emotional. It was mechanical. Inevitable. Oceanus was not water. He was endless suffocation. The terror of drowning without shore, without surface, without escape. Ancient myths describe oceans rising and falling not with tides, but with intention, as if the sea itself was hunting. Hyperion, the so-called Titan of light, was not illumination. He was annihilation by fire. The sun that scorches, blinds, and burns the world to ash. Under his gaze, nothing could hide. Nothing could rest. Zeus embodied intellect, but not wisdom. He was knowledge without compassion. Memory without mercy. The Titan who ensured that suffering was never forgotten, never forgiven, and never allowed to fade. Iapetus carried the terror of mortality itself. He defined the fragile boundary between gods and the doomed. It was through him that death became unavoidable, inheritance became suffering, and existence became temporary. Together, the Titans formed something no later pantheon ever matched. They formed a closed system of inevitability. There was no prayer to escape them. No ritual to appease them. No justice to appeal to. When the Titans ruled, the universe did not ask permission to destroy. And humans, when they finally emerged, were never meant to matter. Early Greek sources hint at something deeply unsettling. Humans were not created for the Titans. They were created around them, like insects evolving near a volcano. Sometimes spared. Sometimes erased. Always irrelevant. This is why the age of the Titans was remembered with terror instead of worship. There were no temples of comfort. Only altars of fear. And then came the most horrifying truth, one the Olympians would later bury. The Titans were not evil. They were necessary. They enforced the original rules of existence. Everything ends. Nothing lasts. Power must consume itself. Which is why the rise of the Olympians was not evolution. It was rebellion against inevitability. Zeus and his siblings did not overthrow monsters. They overthrew the laws that governed reality itself. And in doing so, they broke something fundamental. Because when you imprison time, chain the oceans, and bury the sky beneath the earth, you do not erase them. You create pressure. And pressure always seeks release. This is the truth hidden beneath Greek myth. The Titans were not defeated because they were wrong. They were defeated because their existence guaranteed an ending the gods could not survive. And deep beneath the earth, in Tartarus, they still embody what they always were. Not fallen gods, not defeated enemies, but the original ending of all things. The age of the Titans was not a reign. It was an extinction event stretched across centuries. Later poets would lie and call it a golden age. But that was written by those who survived long enough to forget the terror. In truth, the Titans did not govern the world. They crushed it beneath their existence. When the Titans ruled, the universe had no balance. There were no seasons, only violent shifts. No mercy, only endurance. No protection, only chance. The earth itself was unstable. Mountains did not stand. They erupted, collapsed, and tore themselves open as if trying to escape the surface of the world. Entire regions vanished overnight, swallowed by chasms that had no bottom. The land screamed under the weight of cosmic forces too vast to restrain. The oceans were worse. Under Oceanus, the seas were not boundaries, they were weapons. Waves did not rise with the moon. They rose with intent. Coastlines were erased again and again, long before humans learned to name them. Anything that dared to float was dragged under, not by accident, but by inevitability. The sky burned. Hyperion's light did not warm the world, it scorched it. Days lasted too long. Nights came without warning. The sun hovered like an executioner, bleaching the land, igniting forests, turning entire ecosystems into ash before life could even take root. And time itself became hostile. Under Cronus, nothing was allowed to last. Creation was devoured as quickly as it formed. Growth invited destruction. Progress guaranteed collapse. Every living thing existed with the certainty that it would be erased, not someday, but soon. This was the first apocalypse. Not sudden. Not dramatic. But endless. Life did not flourish, it endured. Primitive humans, fragile and unprotected, existed like prey beneath a sky that hated them. There were no gods to pray to. No promises of salvation. Only massive, distant beings whose movements caused earthquakes and whose conflicts reshaped continents. And when titans clashed, reality broke. Ancient myths describe wars not between armies, but between forces. When titans turned against one another, oceans boiled. The sky cracked open with fire. The earth fractured into bleeding wounds. Entire ages ended in moments of violence so vast they could not be recorded, only remembered as nightmares passed down through whispers. This was a world without hope. A world where survival was not a right, but a mistake. And somewhere in the midst of this endless devastation, a terrifying realization began to spread, among gods yet unborn, among forces yet forming. If the Titans were allowed to rule forever, nothing else ever would. The universe was locked in a cycle of creation and annihilation with no escape. The Titans did not seek dominance, but their existence ensured eternal collapse. And that is why the rebellion began. Not because the Titans were cruel, but because they were final. Their age was the proof that reality itself could not survive under pure inevitability. This was the truth the Olympians would later bury beneath temples and myths. Because admitting it meant admitting something far worse. That the Titans were not the villains of history. They were the original apocalypse. Among all the Titans, one terrified the universe more than the rest. Not because he was the strongest. Not because he was the most violent. But because he understood the future. His name was Cronus, and he was time-given hunger. Cronus was born into a universe that devoured itself. He watched his father, Uranus, crush Gaia beneath endless domination. He watched existence stagnate under immortal pressure. And when Gaia whispered to him, when she placed the sickle in his hands, Cronus did not hesitate. He castrated the sky itself. Blood fell into the sea. The heavens screamed. And time, for the first time, changed direction. Cronus overthrew Uranus not as a hero, but as a necessity. And in that act, he learned the most horrifying truth of all. Every ruler is temporary. Because the same prophecy that doomed Uranus now followed Cronus like a shadow that could never be escaped. A sun will rise. A child will replace you. Time devours even itself. Cronus understood what the Olympians never fully would. Power does not end because of weakness. It ends because time demands replacement. And so Cronus did what only time itself could justify. He began to consume the future. One by one, his children were born: Hestia, Demeter, Hera, Hades, Poseidon, and one by one, Cronus opened his jaws and swallowed them whole. Not in rage. Not in madness. But in cold, mechanical terror. To Cronus, this was not cruelty. It was preservation. If the future could not exist, then the present could not end. Every child he consumed was an age erased before it could begin. Every swallowed god was a timeline aborted. Inside Cronus, the future screamed endlessly, trapped in darkness, unable to grow, unable to die. This is why ancient sources describe Cronus as silent, distant, and hollow. Time does not gloat. Time does not celebrate. Time waits. But even Cronus could not escape himself. Because time, by its very nature, moves forward, even when it tries to stand still. Rhea, his consort, understood this truth. And when Zeus was born, she hid him. She fed Cronus a stone wrapped in cloth, and for the first time, time was deceived. Cronus swallowed the lie without knowing it. And in doing so, sealed his own fate. The prophecy had not been avoided. It had only been delayed. This is the core horror of Cronus. He did not lose because he was evil. He lost because time cannot stop consuming, not even itself. And when Zeus finally rose, forcing Cronus to vomit his imprisoned children back into existence, the universe shuddered. Ages returned violently. The future rushed forward all at once. And the rebellion began. But here is the part the myths soften. Cronus did not fight like a tyrant clinging to power. He fought like a being who knew he was right. Because the Olympians represented something dangerous. Hope. Hope for permanence. Hope for justice. Hope that something could last forever. And Cronus knew that hope was a lie. The war against him was not a battle against cruelty, it was a rebellion against inevitability. Which is why, when Cronus fell, he was not destroyed. He was imprisoned. Because time cannot be killed. It can only be restrained. And deep in Tartarus, Cronus still exists, not raging, not screaming, but counting. Counting seconds. Counting ages. Counting down. Because one truth remains unchanged, even now. Everything that rules will be replaced. And time is still hungry. The war between the Titans and the Olympians was not a battle. It was a collapse of existence. Ancient myths call it the Titanomachy, but that word hides the truth. This was not a clash of armies or champions. It was a 10-year convulsion of reality itself, a period where the universe forgot how to function. When the Olympians rose against the Titans, the earth did not tremble. It screamed. Mountains were torn from the ground and hurled like weapons. Oceans boiled as divine bodies struck the sea. The sky split open, raining fire, stone, and ash as the very laws of nature collapsed under the weight of immortal violence. The Titans did not fight like soldiers. They fought like natural disasters given will. Oceanus surged across the land, drowning entire regions in a single breath. Hyperion's light burned so intensely that forests ignited before shadows could form. Zeus unleashed knowledge so vast and merciless that lesser beings went mad simply by witnessing it. And at the center of it all stood Cronus. Silent. Immovable. Unyielding. Every blow he struck was an age erased. Every movement fractured time itself. The past, present, and future tangled together as if the universe could no longer tell what moment it was meant to exist in. The Olympians were outmatched. They were younger. Smaller. Fragile by comparison. So they did something unforgivable. They unleashed monsters. From Tartarus, they freed the Cyclopes and the Centimanes, beings of such grotesque power that even the Titans feared them. Creatures with 100 arms, 50 heads, and strength beyond reason. Living weapons born for slaughter. The Cyclopes forged the thunderbolt for Zeus, the trident for Poseidon, the helm of darkness for Hades, artifacts not of creation, but of annihilation. The war escalated beyond comprehension. Entire mountain ranges collapsed into dust. The oceans rose into the sky and fell back down as storms that lasted years. The ground split open, revealing Tartarus itself, an endless abyss swallowing anything that fell too close. And still, the Titans did not break. They endured. Because endurance was their nature. What finally turned the tide was not strength. It was betrayal. Some Titans hesitated. Some questioned the endless destruction. And that hesitation, however brief, was enough. Zeus struck with thunder that ripped through reality itself, binding his enemies with chains forged from divine fear and cosmic necessity. One by one, the Titans fell, not slain, but sealed. Bound in Tartarus. Buried beneath the earth. Chained within a living prison that screamed alongside them. The war ended not with victory, but with containment. And the cost was unimaginable. The world that emerged afterward was broken. Scarred. Unstable. The Olympians stood victorious atop a ruined reality, ruling over a universe they barely understood and could never fully control. This is why Zeus feared the Titans even after their defeat. Because the Titanomachy proved a terrifying truth. The gods could not destroy the old forces of existence. They could only delay them. And deep beneath the world, in chains that strain against eternity, the Titans still remember the war. They remember the sky burning. The earth screaming. Time collapsing. And they remember who put them there. Tartarus is not a place. It is a decision. After the Titanomachy shattered reality, the Olympians faced an impossible truth: the Titans could not be killed. No blade could end them. No lightning could erase them. They were not enemies. You cannot kill what is existence itself. So the gods chose imprisonment. They carved Tartarus beneath the world, not beneath the earth, but beneath meaning. Deeper than Hades. Deeper than death. A void so absolute that even time hesitates to enter. Ancient texts describe Tartarus as being as far below the underworld as the earth is below the sky. But that description is a lie meant to comfort mortals. Tartarus is not measured in distance. It is measured in hopelessness. The Titans were dragged there in chains forged by Cyclopes and sealed by oaths older than the gods themselves. Chains not meant to restrain flesh, but to bind concepts, time, memory, will. Cronus was not merely imprisoned. He was unmade in layers. His sense of time was stripped away so he could no longer tell whether a moment was passing or repeating. Every second felt eternal. Every eternity collapsed into nothing. He was forced to experience time as pain. Around him, the other Titans were embedded into the fabric of Tartarus itself, part prison, part foundation. Their bodies became walls. Their screams became the wind. Their thoughts echoed endlessly, with no listener and no release. Tartarus is alive. It breathes through cracks in reality. It tightens its grip when the titans struggle. It feeds on despair and silence. The deeper you descend, the more existence dissolves, light dims, sound distorts, identity fractures. Even the Olympians feared it. Zeus himself never stayed long. Because Tartarus does something unspeakable, it remembers. It remembers every war, every betrayal, every lie told by the gods to justify their rule. It remembers the Titanomachy not as history, but as an unfinished event. The Centimanes were set as eternal guards, but even they do not truly guard the Titans. They guard the gods from what lies below. Because Tartarus does not simply hold prisoners. It waits. Ancient prophecies whisper that Tartarus was never meant to last forever. That it is a temporary solution to an eternal problem. Cracks form. Chains corrode. Oaths weaken as belief fades. And the Titans do not sleep. They dream. Their dreams seep upward into the world, manifesting as earthquakes, storms, madness, and visions of apocalypse. Every unexplained disaster, every sudden collapse of order, every moment when time feels wrong. Is Tartarus breathing out? The Olympians rule above, pretending the prison is secure. But deep below, Cronus listens. He counts the failures. He feels the cracks. He waits for prophecy to complete its cycle. Because Tartarus was never designed to hold eternity. Only to delay it. And when the prison fails, when the chains finally break, there will be no war. There will be reckoning. Even imprisoned, even bound beneath layers of earth and oath, the Titans were never forgotten. The ancient prophecies do not speak in gentle tones. They do not whisper hope. They scream inevitability. They say that one day, the chains will weaken. One day, Tartarus will crack. One day, the sky itself will fracture under the weight of what was buried. And when that day comes, the world will remember fear. The Olympians left us fragments, warnings disguised as myths. Warnings hidden in ritual, in story, in the trembling words of oracles. The prophecies were clear. The seas will rise and consume the coasts. The sky will burn hotter than any sun, scorched with vengeance. Time will fracture, and the past will collide with the future. The world will become unrecognizable to mortals. And the Titans themselves will rise. Cronus, the devourer of time, will stand again, swallowing ages with his hunger. Oceanus will flood the lands, dragging cities beneath his endless tides. Hyperion's light will scorch the living, turning forests, mountains, and plains into ash before dawn. Ceus will awaken minds to unbearable truths, driving mortals and gods alike to madness. Every prophecy ends the same way. No one survives intact. Even the Olympians, immortal though they are, will tremble. Zeus's thunder will no longer strike with certainty. Poseidon's trident will fail to contain the waters. Hades himself will not escape the collapse of the underworld. Some texts hint that the return of the Titans is not a singular event. It is a cycle, an inevitability encoded into the fabric of existence. When one age ends, the Titans stir, waiting for the cracks in order, for weakness in the mortal and divine alike. And the scariest part? The prophecies suggest that humanity is already witnessing the signs. Oceans swallowing lands faster than anyone expected. Fires burning with unnatural intensity. Earthquakes tearing through regions without warning. Societies collapsing under their own greed and ignorance. Some seers believe these are the first murmurs of the Titans' awakening, echoes of power leaking through Tartarus's prison. No god, no mortal, no weapon can stop them. When the Titans return, they will not negotiate. They will not pause for pity. They will reclaim the world that was once theirs, and all who dwell upon it will bow or be broken. The prophecies do not offer salvation. They do not suggest heroes. They only warn, the Titans will rise. And when they do, existence itself will tremble. This is why the ancients hid the truth. They knew that to truly understand the prophecy was to invite despair. To see it was to recognize the fragility of every life, every city, every god. And so we wait. But the waiting is meaningless. Because time itself belongs to the devourer. And the devourer waits patiently. The Olympians may rule the skies. Mortals may walk the earth. Temples may praise gods who promise protection. But the truth is far older. The Titans were never defeated. They were delayed. They were contained. They were bound, for now. Every age, every civilization, every fleeting moment of peace, is built upon their chains. And chains, no matter how strong, are temporary. Cronus waits. Oceanus waits. Hyperion waits. All the Titans wait. And when the world falters, when order weakens, when the arrogance of gods or mortals cracks the foundations, they will return. The cycle has no mercy. It has no loyalty. It has no end. History is a lie written by survivors. Myths are stories told to comfort the fearful. Prophecies are warnings whispered across millennia, because reality itself does not care. And the worst part? The cycle is already in motion. Every natural disaster, every inexplicable collapse, every shadow in the sky, every trembling ground beneath our feet, could be a reminder that the Titans are not gone. They linger. They remember. They wait. The world is fragile. Even the gods are fragile. And when the Titans rise again, nothing will protect us from the hunger of eternity. So remember this, the Titans are not villains. They are inevitability incarnate. They are the end and the beginning at once. And when the chains finally break, we will understand the true meaning of fear. The cycle will never end. And neither will their hunger.